Okay, so I'm so happy you could do this summer, really. Um, and actually, let me adjust my lighting a little better.
Yeah, I'll do that as well.
I'm still on some shadow. Oh well, too bad. All right, so I sent you some questions, but we could deviate. You know, it's kind of a background structure to these general questions that I have.
Okay.
And if you feel you want to share at some point, I'll see if I can do that. Once I'm recording, there might be some issues, but we'll see. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, I met you through Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook,
Exactly. Yeah.
and
That
so
is the
you're
benefits
actually
of
you're
social
actually
media.
a good example of the positive features of Facebook.
Yeah.
that I and so
Building
I
communities, as Mark
sorry.
himself,
Yeah.
as Mark himself quoted it, building communities. You are building a community right now.
Yes, we're building communities, and I was so impressed with your work, as I've said before. And then when I finally got to meet you and talk to you, I found a kindred spirit in many ways. So this this podcast, if I see success with it, is a kind of forum um, that I've imagined. Maybe Plato and Aristotle shared way back when, and doesn't seem to happen enough, where people who are intellectually minded and weighed down by the profundity of our world, have opportunities to speak. So that's what I'm hoping for the best of this. So I initially was introduced to you, and I've had you lecture my classes as someone who has taken uh, not only space station designs but moon bases and Mars bases very seriously. And I might as well start that with, both you and I are fully aware that there's a major European war going on right now, and
Yeah.
it's
Global.
and it's a little frightening.
No,
Um,
it's global.
yeah, and in a sense, it's a proxy World War III, and
Exactly.
it's concerning. So, your I've spoken to students, and when you've lectured to students, your work and work on things like Mars base, moon bases, they also provide a certain kind of way of approaching how we perhaps can dwell on Earth in the future, not only in terms of the dark side, in terms of there not being good air, or God forbid there would be nuclear devastation or what have you, but simply to rethink how we live in the earth, so that perhaps we can let Mother Nature grab back the land, or grab back the earth, as it were. And I've noticed also in the other aspects of your lectures that you're a very sustainably minded architect, and certainly working in areas of the Middle East, you'd be forced to deal with high temperatures, etc. And so, I wonder how you uh, how you feel about the future of architecture, um, and if you think there is a prescription about where we could go, and what it will take to convince societies at large that we need to fundamentally rethink how we live in this planet, and whether you even think that's something that we should be doing. I'd welcome your comments on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. It really brings me pleasure to be discussing with the same mind on an intellectual level, of course, and dealing about the future of humanity or the future of architecture and humanity. Well, architecture is a reflection, is a mirror of our human race and our human development. They work in parallel. Our development, our existence, and architecture, they are both side by side. So, about the future, really, we don't know so much about the future, and that was proven to be true after the high pace of events that we didn't really expect a couple of months ago, couple of years ago. Even you can't imagine in your wildest dreams that, for me. as a resident of Middle East that I'll be witnessing revolutions. I'll be witnessing change in power for most of the North Africa MENA region, North Africa, Middle East, and then pandemics. And I couldn't imagine that someday we will be all just sitting in home and talking through screens. That was really, if you I've just went back to past and talked to my earlier version while I was kid, it was like a science fiction, some kind of science fiction. And now we are witnessing maybe the start of WW3, and who knows, really, weapons of mass destruction, the terrifying term, has now shifted into something, another notion, which is called doomsday weapons. So, weapons of mass destruction, that was a word from the past. Now it is called doomsday weapon. So that is the not the future. This is the present we are living in. But you know something, we have learned from history a lot. Um, Thought leaders and thinkers and maybe architects and leaders has always dreamed of the utopian scenario and tried to avoid what is called the dystopian scenarios. But you know what? Our life is balanced between both. Both should exist at the same time. We have to live, and there is a very fine line between both of them, and there is a balance in life. You can't really live in in an absolute utopia. You have to live both of them. So there is crime, but there is also goodness in this world, and there is good and there is evil, and this is world. If you have the absolute good, world will stop, life will stop. This is something that we have learned from nature, from history, from our existence on this planet. This is how things are working here. So about our future, of course, why I did say that we cannot really predict or anticipate what's coming from future. Just imagine 200 years ago, the highest technology was the wooden wagons pulled by horses. That was the top technology at that time. But nowadays, we have a terrifying kind of technology. We have reached moon, we have submarines, we have all kind of communications. All of this technology is just 200 years. For millions of years, according to anthropology, we have existed on this earth. Maybe I'm not sure, 3.5 million years, something like that, our human history, recorded history. But just 200 years, it's just like a millisecond in our 1 hour history on this planet, and we have reached all of this technology. So I do predict that someday the technology that will exist in the morning will be obsolete at evening or maybe in the afternoon. Who knows? So that means in a couple of days or in just a 3 days or 1 week, you could be really obsolete if you just went to Hawaii or something for a vacation and just bounce back to your original city. You will be like a 70 years old person who didn't really witness the pace of civilization that had existed during this week. A lot of technology, a lot of changes, radical changes might exist. This is the future, and it might not be this terrifying as we can imagine. It might be something really good, but for our mindset, it might be a little bit harsh to live in. But for the new generations that will be used to this kind of pace and accepting this kind of very accelerating rate of technology, that might be something totally okay. I mean, I'm the Facebook generation now. I'm an old generation. I'm the one who is used to Facebook. But now the new
Mm.
generation, I teach in university, as you probably know. So the new generation, first and second year, the freshmen, they use totally different platforms on social media, maybe TikTok, maybe Instagram. Even Instagram became a little bit old one. So that was a terrifying fact for me. And till I realized that this is the new rules. This is the new thing that we have to keep in. Okay, now switching to architecture. Architecture was driven by some certain forces in the past, maybe cultural, of course, the building material and the locality and specificity of the site. That was the driving force, and it was tied to the development of material and construction. But since the 2000, the starting of the new millennia, it was linked to new notions, maybe the cyberspace architects, the new technology, the computer, the tools of design, not the material anymore. And then the material are just running after what we create on our digital platforms until 2019, 2020, when Mark Zuckerberg announced that he will be leading in the what is known as the metaverse. And we have founded a new parallel world. A new portal was opened to a totally new parallel world, not only for architects, but for artists and for anyone who can use some 3D. Now, after the metaverse, he could be a professional architect building cities, building and selling his properties is designed. So you are not just an architect, you will be an architect and real estate property owner, and things are really changing. And now, these days, we are witnessing the AI, and that is the top of technology, the artificial intelligence. And now, not only architect or artist that could create fascinating kind of designs, but anyone who have a good narrative, good words, any reader, even if he's an illiterate or he didn't have an official education, but he could be a professional architect and creating nice images these days. But you really can't expect just in a couple of months, couple of years, I don't know, these images would be 3D models, and 3D models that could be printed or maybe digitally fabricated. So the AI will develop, the AI will learn from us as we learn from it. And we are training the future AI right now while we are using our artificial intelligence like Midjourney, Dawn AI, name it. There's a lot, Dali. There's a lot of platforms working in AI. We are training those bots for the future. So we are creating our future right now. But these bots will be available at the tip of the finger of even a 7 year, 5 year old child who can create buildings and maybe cities. And it could be built. I do believe that there will be a convergence and maybe mergence of certain technologies like the AI, the digital fabrication, the BIM even. It will be on one platform. And our profession, it will not be terminated, but I think it will be a transcendental phase for us. We will evolve into new kind of architects, a architect who is maybe the super professional operator of this kind of technology, the one who have a good understanding of history of architecture and theory of architecture and maybe human psychology. And he will be the ultimate user of this technology to create that class one kind of architecture. But anyone will be capable of building this architecture, even as I mentioned earlier, a 7 year or a 5 year old child. But we, as architects, with our official education, we will be like supermen of this creation process.
Right.
Yeah. So I hope that it is not so pessimistic point of view, but I think, as I also mentioned earlier, the miracle of our life and the beauty of our life that we are witnessing both the utopian and the dystopian. And this is
Hmm.
the balance what keeps life moving on.
You think that's always been there, the dystopian?
Definitely, definitely. We have witnessed a
Mm.
lot of wars, a lot of famines, a lot of pandemics, but we still exist, and that is the beauty of our civilization today. We have today's wisdom not only from for the good things in life, but also from the harsh moments that we have witnessed, and our ancestors maybe perished defending this moment. When they are fighting back in a war or in a pandemic, global wars. Yeah, we have recorded like two world war, but the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire had several global wars at that time. That is not officially documented as world war, but we have been always in world war
Interesting.
since,
Yeah.
yeah, since the beginning of maybe of Adam and Eve, when his child just started fighting and one of them killed the other. That was the first global war. Half of the population just killed the other half of the population. At that time, the population was just like maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 persons. That was the first really global war, and we have just, as everything that we have made, we are transcending, we are evolving into new forms. Just the tools is developed. Our old painters used just some kind of colored stones and start the petroglyphs and the pictographs of the ancient caves. Today we have AI. The human being, the talent, it's the same. It's not developed. We are born and we know just nothing. And we are living also this life and we are living everything. So during our short span life, which is 60 to 70 year, we innovate, we transcend, we do everything by the available technology, but the talent is this, it's the same. You are born with a gift. Each one. Actually, scientists have declared that we have like maybe from 26 to 27 kind of gift that some people explore and discover early in their life, and they start developing it and using it, maybe making money and become this key personnel that change the history. And some just live and die, and they don't use just single one of their gifts. But our today's technology, we are also excelling. We are innovating using what is available, and the future rule will same apply. As we are advancing in our technology, the future generation will use what will be available. So this is the bottom line. We are just spending our life between both the utopian and the dystopian, using what is available. Yes, things are now much more terrifying if you are talking about a global war, but this is very totally natural due to the advancement in the technology that we possess today. Just like maybe 2 or 3 thousand years ago, the top technology was just bows and arrows and maybe some kind of heavy artillery, but also nations wiped out each other. The same rule applies. Today we are using some kind of video games to the mind of just 70 years ago. If you can describe what we are using today of drones, maybe ballistic missiles, whatever, people sitting on their computer screens and moving wars of machines, it will be like a video game just 70 years ago. That is not considered to be war in the mindset of warriors 70 or 60 years ago. But believe it or not, we are wiping also nations using this kind of technology. And the same goes on and gone. And I think it's not our time really to leave Earth or to end our existence on Earth. We are still exploring the new technology and we're still exploring the new potential, the new possibilities. And we'll keep on that for a while, I think.
I think again, the power of some of your moon base and Mars base and some of your visionary work really reminds me, and you've spoken about it too, Summer. It's like the first, and I think the planet as a whole, the leaders of what may be Mars missions, such as Elon Musk, et cetera, I think people are starting to conceptualize that the first astronauts, the first people to settle Mars, may not actually be human. And in point of fact, we may be virtually inside those avatars. And I think that the potential for AI, and I know, again, I'm speaking to an architect who's pretty much fully on board with this kind of thinking, which is why I'm interested in your comments on this, is that this, all this commentary you see in the movies, like the multiverse, and Marvel movies and stuff like that, where it's already in pop technology. But I think the idea of the multiverse is actually in competition with Zuckerberg's Meta, in that 5-year-old can create his own universe, or that 7-year-old can create his own universe, or for that matter, that 60-year-old can create his own universe and then populate it. That is one component of this. But the in terms of arguably potentially helping society significantly, I think that the use of these multiverses as trial balloons, where you're testing out governments, you're testing out architectures, you're testing out anything that we can do in reality inside this virtual universe. It's almost also a way of counteracting autocratic dictators. Where you create a multiverse inside North Korea, inside Russia for that matter, where people are free and where plans are made and where things are perfected, and perhaps how to overthrow the autocrat on the outside. And I think the more we get into artificial reality, and the more we augment reality, and the more we create multiverses, perhaps an infinite amount of multiverses. And I'm not talking about physics then. I'm talking about what we are capable. We're at the dawn of it right now in terms of creating these universes. That's potentially how we fully evolve. And maybe the dystopia and the utopia become interwoven in all these digital universes. And I really do feel we're at the dawn of that. But certainly I could see, I think it's already starting to be spoken about is not only do we not have to send astronauts, but we could 3D print, maybe 3D print some robotic avatar for us there. And we literally could be exploring Mars. You and I could be talking on Mars, etc. And I'm wondering if your future work, I mean, are you have you conceived of designing cities in the metaverse yourself?
Well, this is a very good question, and actually, you are just opening the box of Pandora, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, we are just talking about what we can see in just a couple of years from now. But
Hmm.
let me ask you kindly to extend our vision a little bit. So, let me ask you a couple of questions just to simplify things, even for our audience. The recording and the podcast that we are doing today, it might last online like for maybe what years, centuries. It will be available for maybe forever, right? Even after our passing with maybe centuries, what we will live like 20, 30, 40, 50 maybe years from now on. And then later on, this video will last like for 100, 200, 1000 years. So our existence, our talk today will stay forever, maybe. So let's now project and imagine this. And this is not very far away technology. Just maybe in 6 or 7 years, we will not be recording videos. We will be even not, maybe not available on this earth, but our self conscious will be recorded onto an online cloud service, creating my new thoughts, and you are creating your new thoughts. And maybe our two next versions in the future, after our physical passing from this world, but our virtual counterparts or our virtual copies, our virtual consciousness will be available and keep living and keep innovating and keep talking and keep making pods like that. So yeah, I know it's a
Yeah.
little bit hard to process. Yeah, I know it's a little bit, but this is not a new kind of sci-fi. It is what is available for today. The AI
Mhm.
is really processing and advancing in a very high accelerating pace,
Right.
and this is not a terrifying. I mean, we today use even Siri on your mobile phone, and this is just what is known as the narrow AI. We have narrow AI, and then we have something bigger that's called wide AI, and then we have the top that which is self-conscious AI. But self-conscious is not about creating new. The one that I'm talking about right now is not about creating new characters. It's about recording all of our deeds, understanding our mindset, and hence producing original, excuse me, producing original
You want to get some water?
innovations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe creating new codes and innovations of what we will be doing if we are still living on this earth. But what will be working and processing is our virtual AI copies. So there will be summer for like the next 1,000 years. There will be the next David for 1,000 years. This is the maybe this is the eternity that we will be witnessing. This might be the new kind of parallel world. All of the brightest minds of our time will be available here for the tip of your hand. And you reminded me of one project. Most of my space project was awarded internationally. So I have this particular project of some kind of, I teach history. There's something called the monolithic menhirs. The monolithic menhirs is some kind of huge stone parts that is available, and we have understood that people had used some kind of spiritual practices thousands of years ago due to the existence of this kind of monolithic structures. So
Hmm.
I have built monolithic 3D printed structures of moon regolith to be the new megalithic structures, something like Stonehenge, but on the South Pole in Shackleton Crater. And each structure is a smart, intelligent structure. You can talk to Einstein. You can talk to
Right. Wonderful.
whatever. Yeah, in a reverse engineering process, if you have just exposed an AI as very intelligent AI bot, and you have just uploaded all the writings and quotes and the theories and papers of Einstein, you can create a virtual Einstein. And this is the terrifying. This is a new thing. Just 200 or 300 250 years ago, if you have shown our video today, we are in totally different continents, and you have shown this kind of technology to someone who is living 300 years ago,
Magic.
he would
Yeah.
consider it black magic. Yeah, exactly. He
Yeah.
cannot process or understand what we're doing today. And that is totally normal. This is totally understandable. But I do say that just in a matter of less than maybe 10 years, the next 10 years, our new kind of artificial intelligence that will be representing me in myself and representing you in yourself and most of the innovators and anyone who can afford being out there. Just like the Renaissance kind of paintings that the artists were commissioned to paint the lords and nobles, so their picture might stay for centuries, and it was really passed from one generation to another. Now you will be having your own um, conscious, just in a piece of, maybe, I don't know, a mobile phone or a kind of USB flash memory, whatever, and it will be available for people and your grandchildren and maybe generations yet to come. And it will not be only book, and our my and your innovation, or me and your intelligence and conscious, will be regularly writing books, making podcasts, contributing to the human race and to the future civilization. So I decided to download and to record all of our past legacy, our past innovators, in 12 different megalithic structures and upload it into Moon. And that was the plan B for humanity. Plan B for humanity is not just keeping embryos
I
or
love it.
seed banks, but
Yeah.
our most precious asset, which is our conscious, our intelligence, and keep innovating due to the new technology. And that will be our new race in the space. So our new race in the space, our physical body is not engineered for this outer space. But having this kind of rocks or megalithic structure, this will be you and me and most of the innovators. So one megalithic structure could carry like billions of minds and billions of conscious that will be operating and innovating and maybe inventing a new way to liberate themselves from this megalithic structure and start a new civilization.
Yeah,
And I know
through
yeah,
silicon bots for that matter. Through silicon.
you can't really anticipate. You can know
Yeah.
this is far beyond of our imagination.
And also
Exactly. Yeah.
whether corporal reality is even necessary. It could
Yeah.
be
S-
yeah, it
So
could be
having
holographic.
something having something like a platform like the virtual metaverse, you remind me exactly of the Matrix. You know, the Matrix, the
Of
movie
course. Yeah.
19, that was like a genius kind of vision. Really, it literally changed my mind at that time. And I start not realizing that this will be the future. I start witnessing the process of building this matrix while we are talking now. Each year, a new kind of technology popping up, virtual environments or virtual 3D, and then the metaverse, and then the AI. And I do believe strongly that they will all merge into one platform. In a certain point in time, you will have your own utopia online, and we will be really capable of uploading our conscious, and we will stay forever on that. And that is the beauty of the technology. Just as you know, in 80s and 90s, in my teenaging, I had this video library, video tapes, and just started recording, playing, and I enjoyed maybe the same tape for like maybe what years, same cartoons maybe for years, and I do say that the same will apply, but you will not have a very certain recorded tape. You will have a conscious, just in a very small chip that you can call anytime and start talking to. So can you imagine if you are feeling a little bit depressed that you can talk to Simone Freud after development and after understanding our today's technology, and Simone Freud will be available for you anytime with the same genius mind. He could be solving most of your psychological problems. He will be your new shrink. He will be new and same. Can you imagine today Einstein lecturing in our universities, or Le Corbusier talking about his vision after the technology and the AI revolution? That is the future. That is and the same apply outside Earth. So at that certain point, it really doesn't matter if Earth will be doomed or not, because we might exist on the same planet that will be resembling maybe Mars or Moon, the harsh environment. We will be an extraterrestrial kind of like our physical body will change and transcend into a new and evolve into a new form of intelligent life. That is what I believe it will be the future of humanity.
Well, let me throw this thought at you. It's often said, I read in various places, and certainly it's a kind of radical environmentalist attitude, that if you take humans away, the Earth is a utopia.
Yeah,
you
I
add
can
you
imagine.
you add humans, and you are oriented towards dystopia. And
Yeah,
there, and
maybe for the
yeah.
rest of the life forms, yeah, our if we just wiped out, yeah, the all of the wild flora and fauna will feel like it's their new utopia. You know.
Well, and I wonder, one could argue that from the origins of what we know as our universe, whether it's a big bang, whether it was multiple big bangs, however, there's all sorts of different astrophysical theories on the origin of our known universe at this point. That one could argue that the origin of what we are in space time was violent, immensely violent. From something smaller than an atom to you and I talking on these screens. And to your point, perhaps the universe can only exist through this balancing act of ultraviolence and peace. And it won't allow itself peace, arguably, we wouldn't have the universe. If it's a true utopia can't exist, because there would have been no Big Bang. There would be no entropy.
Yeah.
And so there's some manifestation of the universe that is humanity that seems, cursed, perhaps. Maybe it's just so fundamental that we can't even say that we orient towards entropy and destruction. And will that follow us, for instance? Will that follow us into our digital multiverses?
Well, let's just keep learning from history. The absolute utopia had caused, I do believe that it has caused the wipe out of a very intelligent civilization, maybe like Atlantis or something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we really can't live in the absolute utopia. This is not how Earth is working on. Maybe in heaven, maybe in another place. And by the way, talking about religion, there are three different concepts that I would like to discuss, and they might reflect each other. Actually, we have discussed earlier in a talk. The do we live in a simulation? And I
Sure.
really kept
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, I do believe strongly that we are in a simulation. And if we are putting ourselves in the shoes of a religious priest, we are living in a simulation. And the end of this simulation will start in the afterlife. Will you decide wherever you'll be decided that you will go to heaven or maybe to hell, for God forbids. But we are living in a really simulation. And if you are talking about from a physics point of view, we are witnessing the next afterlife, maybe this kind of new technologies and this kind of reality. Yeah, we are evolving very, very quickly.
We're
So people,
seeing we're
yeah,
creating our own afterlife. That's
yeah,
that's
you can say
yes.
that. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of movie science fiction that really have dealt with something like this. When just this little nice cute girl just wanted to upload her boyfriend so he can live forever and they can just be there. You can find a tons of movies talking about the same concept. And actually, at the time of the release of this movie, it was a nice kind of romantic and comedy sci-fi. But now I have started realizing that this is not sci-fi anymore. And this is the beauty of the accelerating pace of what we are witnessing today. So, anyway, about our existence, yeah, we are living the utopia and the dystopia at the same time. But you had the choice, and you always have the choice whether you would like to shift your life and the life of your family and friends into toward upward utopia, or you would like to live in a dystopia. And really, this is I don't know, it's much more subjective or objective kind of thing. Our dystopia might be the utopia of others. You know, the mafia, for example, they do live in their best moments, and they think that this is the ideal life where they can gain whatever they would like to take. But in our point of view, this might be the absolute wrong or the dystopia kind of kind. I am an anti-violence kind of person, but some people see that the violence is the solution, and it can achieve us utopia. So this is Earth, this is life. One's utopia is another dystopia, and so on. But let's agree on one fact, that both exist at the same time, and this is the balance. The absolute utopia will perish us, and also the absolute dystopia will annihilate us. Both are impossible. And we only know the day because we have the night. We only know the black because we have the white. And this has been also the life. This is life. You can't live with one without the other.
Yeah, it's an amazing thought. Um, yeah, that we are it's this whole concept of entropy that regardless of what we try to do, we are oriented towards disintegration. ultimately. And I think that the creation of the digital world, of the digital universe, would appear to be certainly a conscious attempt, which again we are at the dawn of, to counteract that entropy. I
Mm.
think it to somehow counteract the entropy, so that we can create a certain kind of stasis in these monoliths you want to put on the moon.
Well,
And the more we spread out, look, I think that the Einstein was quoted as saying that humanity's purpose is to discover the mind of God, and he was a kind of agnostic in that sense because he actually used the word God, and whatever that means. So what I think it might mean is to really get outside our known reality, to advance past the speed of light. The most comforting thoughts, readings that I've done on that subject have to do with physicists and philosophers who consider the infinite as what our ultimate attempts are. Will always hit the infinite. That infinity will keep opening up, and that all our desire, which seeks to solve the infinite, will continue to experience the infinite. That it just won't stop. It's infinite. So I wonder again. There's something. I think you and I again are architects in general, perhaps, but certainly there's a whole class of architects, arguably like us, who really want to understand this phenomenon that we're in, and our architectures seem to want to capture that. And I wonder, I was talking to Helmut Kinsler from Zaha Hadid Architects a few days ago, and um, the idea of finding clients who are searching for the infinite and who are truly understanding what architecture can do. That seems to be part of what we do as architects, is to try to build in some way what the to the best of our ability, what our visions for the deep future are, I think. And it's a challenging, it will always remain a challenging discipline, because we're trying to align our intellectual desire with some type of support, some type of exterior financing to help achieve our goals. Do you think that's true, or do you think that we can stay inside ourselves in a way?
actually, answering these kind of questions, there is no the absolute true or wrong, but there is a discussion, there's elaboration, there's exchange of experiences regarding this issue. So, talking about the infinite or the infinite, we are always talking about the infinite as it is something that is beyond our reach, or it is something that is so far away that you cannot imagine its end. You can also perceive it and depict it inside your mind as it is like a walking distance that you cannot really reach its end or its goal. But actually, we are living in the infinite right now. And this is the amazing part. And let me elaborate on this for a moment. After finishing this podcast, you have an infinite possibilities of actions that you can take to end your day or to pass your day. You can go out, you can go to sleep, you can just pick a book and start reading, you can innovate using a drone, you can do infinite course of actions.
Hmm.
And we are living on this on the realm of design, and in the world of design and the world of architects. When you just put a blank paper, white paper in front of you, you are experiencing the infinite. You can draw whatever you can decide, and there is not one right solution. There are infinite possible right solutions, and
Nice.
this is the amazing. So
Yeah.
can you imagine now having two infinites if you are unlocking synergies with a colleague professional architect? And if you are three architects and each one with his infinite possibilities multiplied with the infinite possibilities of another colleague, and You are really living in the infinite at the moment. It is not something that is beyond our reach. And this may be the reason that scientists have talked about the parallel universe, because all of the other course of action that you are taking will exist in some kind of a universe, which is in parallel at the same space and time fabric, but it is in another dimension that you cannot really penetrate unless you open a portal between those universes to start seeing the another scenario if you have just taken another scenarios. So we are living at the infinite, and this is really what amazes me and what motivates actually and inspires me. You see, each day for me, it's a new start. It's a new scenario of what I could be doing yesterday. So, and this is the reason that we keep learning from our mistakes. Mistakes is just one scenario that didn't really follow in your best um, course of action. So you are trying to take another course of action and try to evaluate it. And since you succeed, you just give it a thumb that this is the good way. So I will be keeping and being consistent on this kind of action. But you have the choice, and the choice is one of the biggest gifts and blessings that we have today. You have the choice to say whatever you'd like to say. You have the choice to innovate what crosses your mind, but you have to be prepared for a very long trip into the infinite. If you are reading enough, if you are just taking your mind to the next level, no. According to Kardashev scale had invented a scale of measuring civilization. I think we also have to invent something for our human capacity, for our mind capacity to innovate. And since you are living in the infinite moment of possibilities and possible actions and possible designs, possible even calls that you take each day and every moment of this day, so the more you are well prepared and on a very high scale of mindset, you will choose wisely what really falls in your good. So can you imagine the architecture? We are bouncing from maybe modernism to postmodernism, and then the cyberspace and the hypersurface theory, which exists in 2003 maybe, and now we are witnessing the AI. Can you imagine a total different scenario shifting from this reality to another reality just by the choice that Le Corbusier didn't really believe in the minimalism, which was a philosophy, by the way, that existed from Karl Marx philosophy and writings, and from Sigmund Freud, and from Charles Darwin. These three scientists and philosophers had reached one certain fact that the most complex problems in this world could be solved by the simplest course of action and simplest decisions. And that was the origin of less is more, which turned to art and philosophy and music and lastly in architecture. So one action or one decision or one thought from one to other thoughts are just trespassing people and are transporting from one mind to the other mind. And now we have the same. One small thought that we might really be discussing today might be the inspiration for a complete whole generation of architects in the near future. And it could shift the humanity. So this is the infinite possibilities. We are living in the infinite moment. Taking one course of action might lead to another course of action and so on. But we have infinite possibilities, infinite multiple words. And that's it. This is what we have learned from the past and what we do anticipate in the future according to our existence on this earth and this life. We have learned that things are running this way.
Well, maybe we are at a critical point where we're kicking open the door to having true comfort inside the infinite, so to speak.
We live in one choice of the infinite. We have been always there.
So let me bring this up then. You know, my understanding, and I always apologize for this because much as I read philosophy, philosophy was meant to be misinterpreted. So I have my understanding of Plato. You know, in the last few years, I've been spending a lot of time reading some of the ancient philosophers, which I was overwhelmed, and this is in the last 5 years. I've been overwhelmed in how contemporary they are. In that ancient philosophers were easily just as smart as we are, no problem. What they were missing, sure, technology, versions of technology, but the intelligence levels were as
It was
high as
very high.
anything we're
Yeah,
capable of. So you
exactly.
look at Plato, and or my understanding of Plato again is the father of rationalism, meaning the immaterial, that there are ideal forms in the ether, and that it is humankind's mission to discover these ideal forms and to replicate and clarify them in all forms of thought. His student Aristotle was arguably or reacting to a lot of what his teacher had presented, and Aristotle's considered the father of empiricism and scientific method. And in some ways, even I started understanding these guys or misunderstanding them when I was much younger, and so I've been with them through architecture school, etc. But they also, Aristotle seemed to me much more comfortable to my sense of what modernism could be. And I look at Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water or Frank Lloyd Wright's Roby House as illustrations of an Aristotelian method where they were not about ideal form. They were about
Real
scientifically
experience.
almost, yeah, empirically understanding the environment. But we're at such a strange time now that I could not have imagined, I don't think, in this, when I was younger, where it looks like Plato actually was amazing, unbelievably prescient and unbelievably prophetic in the sense
Visionary.
that the digital world is platonic. It's ideal where you're creating out of zeros and ones, I guess, but it's not empirical. It's not coming from examining quote unquote the real world. What is again, in thinking about Zaha Hadid's work, again having just spoken to Helmut
Helmut.
Kinsler about this, she, granted that she died uh, you know 7 or 8 years ago. I think I may have that wrong. 5 days.
2013.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 2013. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, time flies.
Yeah.
She was truly doing. You could argue that fascist governments don't want Zaha. She had an open, fluid architecture that was inherently democratic, perhaps because it's reaching out. It's incomplete. It's just
Uncontrollable.
yeah, and kind of captured time. But 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 having said that, it's still we're at that cusp, but it's still frozen in materiality. So this is a fluid movement that will not move. It will move with time, but it's not actually fully alive. And Zaha's work was, I suppose, it would have put a smile on Aristotle's face maybe in terms of some
At that time.
scientific organic capturing of time. But again, I think we're at a strange moment where we can almost leave the Earth. We are leaving the Earth in terms of these artificial environments. I wonder if you would comment on some of that.
Yeah. You have tackled a lot of really notions and concepts that really keep my mind exploding every each second. So let's just take it one by one, step by step. Philosophy. The beauty of philosophy, even the ancient philosophy, that it could be rediscovered, rethought, and redefined with each age and with each kind of technology. And that is the reason and the secret that it still exists till today. You can see it with a fresh eye, with a new point of view with each technology, and it applies surprisingly in our modern life after thousands of years ago. But I have maybe a little certain vision being in Middle East, so I am caught in the middle between the Western philosophy and the Eastern philosophies. So one example, I was really amazed by the minimalism. This kind of movement in architecture and design, the minimalistic, and
Mhm.
which crawled into even the lifestyles. And there's a very nice movie. I think most of us maybe have watched that movie on Netflix or something. It's called The Minimalism, having a minimal kind of lifestyle. And this minimal kind of lifestyle, it argues that the less that you possess, the happier that you live. So it calls that you don't really have to possess a lot of things and a lot of belongings, but just to try to free yourself. And surprisingly, that was the lifestyle in the Paleolithic age. And the nomads, people kept living this. You are just living for a moment. You don't have this fancy saloon or fancy sofa or this kind TV or whatever you think what keeps you happy. So from this kind of minimalism, I start searching and I found surprisingly that there is another version of this minimalism in the Japanese minimalism. And when I traced back the origins of the Japanese or the Oriental minimalism, it was so much linked to the Zen doctrine that they do believe in perfecting life and about perfecting life and just abandoning everything else and try to keep yourself empty from the inside, and this is the secret of the happy life or the happiness. So there is another version that is working in parallel, but we have converged. We had reached in the 21st century that we have multi versions of this minimalism and it keeps on happy. But the origins, I thought at the beginning that they were different, the philosophy or the origins from Plato to the Zen religion, but I do believe they are the faces of the same coin. So about this really space and matter, which is much more discussed maybe among philosophers, and I do believe that architects have the right to discuss the space time much more. There is a very interesting quote by John Archibald Wheeler. He said, "Space time tells matter how to move." And then later on, matter tells the space-time how to curve. So there is a relationship between this space-time or matter. We are a moving kind of creatures, and this is what is amazing about us. Um, some of the maybe lessons that I do teach in the university are the five jumping levels of perception that we do have. So the first thing when you just talk to your friend over a phone call or something and tells him about this amazing place that you have been to and he didn't visit, you start building a mental image inside your mind. And I call this like the mm, conceptual level. A conceptual level could also be reached if you have a drone or an iBird view or a satellite image where you can understand everything, but you do not understand the intricate details of a master plan, for example. But you do have a good understanding about the master plan of the area. This is the conception level. Once you ground on your feet and start walking through this place, you start switching from a conceptual level to a perception level. Perception level where you can perceive a lot of details. And that surprisingly is the difference between birds in the sky and the rodents. Both of them have a development in their hippocampus, this part of the mind that is responsible for understanding and perceiving the space. But the difference is fundamental between birds, which can understand the conception and they have this natural understanding the cardinal direction, the north, south, east, and west. Unless the rodents have a very high place memory, they do not have this conceptual eye, but they have a very good memory to read details and put their clues, even the smell clues and texture clues of this place, and so they can travel and navigate through this space. So they are totally different kind of space perceptions, but both are so much advanced. And we as humans, we just travel between both, from the conception to perception. And these are only the two levels of understanding the space. The third level, when you start perceiving the space with most of your senses, when you put a clue on the space with a distinctive smell that you keep smelling while you are visiting a certain room or a certain street, or your hearing when you have this audio clues about understanding that there's a fountain in this place, and you start building a whole experience. So this kind of cognition, when you have a good understanding about the navigation and link those navigation with all of your five senses. So if one of your senses have just been stopped, you can also navigate because the rest of the senses will just lead you the way. Then we start making memories. We start adding narratives to this space. Maybe their memories, aspirations, emotions. And this is a high level of perception that I call inception, according to the Inception and the movie of Inception. I think you have watched this movie as most of the architects. So you
Yeah.
have narrative and even you have feeling toward the space. So the space is not just An abstract matter, no, it means something to you. You love this space. You hate this space. You can find your memories in this space. And this is the reason that we protect our legacy and our architectural legacy, because it is the memory, history have been done in this place. So if you perish this place, or you just uh, had this decision to remove this place, you are removing part of the history of your nation. And this is something that we cannot really afford in architecture and moral values. And this is a higher level of understanding the space. And the last one is the deception. And believe it or not, some spaces really carries deception inside it. It might be, even if you have just left this space for years, you imagine it, but with a twisted kind of image. The mental image distorts. The mental image is affected by our emotion. There are biases in perceiving and remembering this space. And even if you keep visiting this space, the deception exists when you love a space that the others hate, or you hate something, a room that the others see that it is perfect. So this kind of difference means that there is a certain level of deception in understanding this space or perceiving this space. So these 5 levels, we move from these 5 levels. Even we start with the conception. When you are deciding to visit space, you start depicting in your mind a certain image, and that image will give instructions to your mind. How can you navigate? You will start by finding the entrance and then the corridors, and you start building a path in your mind before taking the decision. But once you just step in, and there is a new level that is being created, it's perception. And when you start really visiting and touching and smelling and hearing the space, you switch to the cognition level. And then after this nice visit and you start talking about it, you create a narrative, your experience in this space, which is the inception. And when you decide to go to this place, maybe a week later on, you have a decision, you have a vision that might not be the true vision or the version of the true space, because there is a deception level that have entered into your understanding of this space. So space matter, the really magical part here, that with each step, we are not only stepping to a new perspective image in the space, but also a new time existence, an original moment of time. And this original moment of time with this space creates the new experience that switches you from the conception level to the deception one.
That's wonderful. I wonder again at the times that we're in right now, that the it's the question is, who does the architect serve? And I think that we're at a point right now where I think the question is as pointed and as unique as it's ever been in history. And perhaps that's been the trajectory all along. But I do think something major has happened because of the power of the digital realm. And I wonder if well, combined with that question is this idea of materiality, and that current understandings of this is something I was talking to Helmut Kinsler about as well, is that current understandings of reality is that the hard problem of consciousness may actually only exist at the quantum level. It's in the clouds of electrons, and even smaller than that, what creates anything that we call consciousness. And we may or may not ever figure it out, the hard problem of consciousness. And maybe I've read literature recently that said the idea of emergence, of an emergent consciousness, seems to be a cop-out. That there needs to be deeper research to find out what constitutes consciousness. Part of this whole conundrum that we're in today is that we actually are, you could listen to comics make jokes about this, but we're actually a bunch of molecules, and smaller, that are brought together to form, Sama or David, and that there is no materiality. There's a huge philosophical movement ongoing right now to argue that there's no such thing as materiality.
Yeah,
And
we do not
all,
exist even.
I'm sorry.
And we might not be existing as well.
and we might be a simulation, sure. And where do you
Yeah,
back this
yeah.
up, et cetera? But that the what we constitute, what we understand as materiality is a full illusion on any level you want to look at it. That we make certain understandings to solidify things, basically. And these understandings are what allow us to exist in this world that we're in. And I think it's increasing this, the anti-materialism is going to continue to increase because of this ability to create these metaverses. So and on a practical level, the materials that David is now using to sheathe my houses that I'm designing are composite materials. They act, they're mixes of different materials. So it's not, you can't even talk about the legitimacy of specific materials anymore because everything is becoming composites. We're inventing everything. And we
Mm.
also find out that our invented materials are better than the materials that nature provides us. They last longer. They keep houses drier, etc. So I think we're to me, the way I was educated, Summer, it feels there's an aspect of it that's hugely disturbing.
Yeah.
That things are becoming more and more immaterial. I was taught that that's what was so bad about postmodernism, that it was all immaterial, but we are existing it's becoming more immaterial.
Yeah, it
So,
makes sense much more.
yeah, and then there's a question. I'm compelled as you are, and maybe we're getting near the end here, but I'm compelled perhaps as you are to educate in terms of pushing the field that neoclassicism and and the elements of architecture that are looking backwards, that's inherently conservative. And we notice that autocratic and hegemonic regimes often grab hold of neoclassical work. And so I want to teach, I do want
Exactly.
to teach about empiricism and modernism, and really understand, trying to mimic science and trying to do buildings that are fully free of history. And as I say, I think that is there a directed way? Maybe I'll end with this, and then we can have a part two. My question to you is there a directed way of teaching that continues to push the formal innovations so that we are going past Zaha formally,
Mm.
or is Zaha's work ultimately capricious because it's trapped in a certain understanding of where modernism needed to be, etc.
Well,
Yeah.
you have tackled a very, very, very nice, really, and you are triggering like nuclear explosions in my mind right now. So let me just begin with this proverb that we teach the first year students, and it is a very well known among most of the cultures. The proverb of in architectural education says it goes like this: one man was just walking by the street and he found three workers doing exactly the same task, the same thing, and he asked the first one, "What are you just doing?" And the first man responded and said, "I'm just sculpting a stone, a piece of stone that will be used later on as masonry." That was at that time. So he passed to the second person and he told him, which is exactly doing the same task. And he asked him, "What are you just doing?" And he responded, "I am building a cathedral." So they are just doing the same thing, but the vision and the intention are totally different. And when he passed to the third one, which is the most interesting answer, he responded that I am building nation, I am building generations. So they are really doing the same thing, but the intention from inside is totally different. And when we ask me, who is the architect serving? Is he serving community, or is he serving the ruler government and the regime, or is he serving humanity? So it depends on the architect himself. You know, this dilemma when you are a fresh graduate and you just open your new practice and you are questioned with a very important question. Do you have to do whatever the client will tell you because he had this check in his pocket and you need this check, or you will be projecting your vision and your understanding of architecture. Whatever happens and whatever the consequences, you are taking the chances and you are just saying what is right and what is wrong. And that is the question that each graduate and each practice. I do believe that Zaha was one of the early decision makers, that she took a decision that she will make her own version of understanding of reality and matter and architecture. And that really created this nice and novel school that I think it is something that it might not really exist, but with Zaha. She was a revolutionary, and the revolutionary is a very literate word. I mean it literally. The revolution, the flowing lines, which really transcend all kind of separators and all kind of barriers. It's breaking all barriers. Exactly.
Right.
Having a vertical wall with a door, you just step in or step out. You are in a moment inside or outside the space. But flowing and the movement of flowing just from one space to other freely, democratically, without any barriers. This is what is amazing about Zahadid, not just the form or the beauty of her structures. This the word beauty, the beauty, it is a very nice word. It's called chaos, I think, in the Greek language, in the Italian bello or bello, something like that. And the real the deep understanding of beauty, it's not just about the form or what we see in front of our eyes. And that is the reason that we say he has a beautiful mind, as Renzo Piano maybe said in one of his talks. And the real beauty is in the experience itself, in the values, in the morality of the structure and the spaces. And this is the beauty of Zaha Hadid, that she gives you this experience that you are totally free. You are flowing from one experience without other to the other, without separations, without feeling that you are in a barrier that you have to break. In our conventional architecture, you are experiencing the horizontal edge and the vertical edge in all of our spaces, all of our rooms. You keep moving from one room to the other room, and if you are inside and open the window, you are also seeing, and you have this fine interface between what is outdoor and indoor. In Zahid's experience, when I visited some of her projects, I felt this natural flow. And I live in Alexandria. It's a Mediterranean city, so I keep going to the beach and see and swimming in this beach. I feel really moving from one point to certain point without realizing that I have moved. This is the beauty of the sea. It's one flowing with the wave, and you
Mm.
are flowing with the wave, and you have to take your own decision while you are flowing. You like to move right, or so there are no barriers. So breaking the barriers, it is the democratic. So the autocrats of some regimes across history, they are always depicting what is in the past, because the tyrants tended to build their own legacy and their own empires, and they project themselves again. The Roman Empire, maybe the one of the earliest military empires in the whole world, and they do believe that they will be continuing what they have started. But turning to the past, I always tell my students, if you kept turning on the past, who will create the future? The past is great, and we have, yeah, in the postmodern to have something that is called the spirit of civilization. But I think it is now our turn that we will be building the past for today, futures generations. So you
Mhm.
have to build our today present, so our future generation can turn into this era and not to the era. So we have to prove that we can innovate in our time. We have to prove our existence and our signature in this time. We have to make the glory and the something, the original contribution to the human race that the future generations can refer to. This is our responsibility. And maybe this was the decision that I decided to be a space architect. I wanted not just to be a simple architect and innovate in terms, no, I wanted really to have a significant one step towards the future of humanity and start creating and paving the way for future generations. So that was my decision. And of course, coming from Middle East and experience all kind of desert communities that experienced the harsh environment with the lack of technology, and
Yeah.
surprisingly building, we have a quote in the Middle Eastern kind of architecture: build with a material that does exist under your feet, beneath your feet. This is a very
Nice.
sustainable and well-known
Right.
quote. And I was amazed in 2015 when I have read the first NASA brief that called upon using the ISRU in in situ resource utilization. And they have reached this conclusion. They have concluded that the most feasible way in building tomorrow's habitat or the future habitat on Moon or on Mars or any planetary surface is only by using the local material. And the only thing that we will have to do is shipping the 3D robotic arm that will be responsible for the 3D printing or laser sintering those
Right.
structures. So that reminded me of the experience that people have been experiencing thousands of years ago. And I realized at that moment that the past, the present, and the future is merging together. And it is just passing our experience from one generation to the other. And that was the moment that I realized that we have to create the future, or at least create this present, so our future generation can refer to us. We do understand today's sustainable architecture according to the thousands of years of accumulation of experiences in building sustainable communities. Those people that lived in this part of the earth, in desert, or maybe in the North Pole, you can find igloo. Igloo is the available ice material that will be totally sustainable at that part of the world. At the mountains, you find people of the mountain using the stones. In the valley of the Nile, they're using the mud. And in the desert, they are doing the sand. Even the sand, the so soft sand, they have ingeniously created solid bricks of the sand and salt and start building with it. And this is the cycle. You have just to look under beneath your feet and you will find the answers. The local material is the most suitable, the most sustainable, the most feasible, the low cost solution that you can survive if you don't have the technology. So this kind of nice and composite synthetic materials, it is, yeah, it is fabulous. And really you can feel this thrill when you go to Burj Khalifa, when you just 1 kilometer above earth and you experience a new kind of experience. But believe me or not, if you'd like to survive in the lack of technology, you have to refer to the available material. And that was
Right.
this only solution on Moon.
Right. And I suppose this is a good time to say that again, I welcome talking to you for another 3 or 4 sessions. But
Yeah. Thank you so much
let's
for this kind of.
yeah, this is wonderful, and I'm gonna see if I can pause, stop recording. I'll try that.